Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Many thanks for your joining the Eco-Asia Conference for the session on SDGs implementation and brighter future. The conference is organized by Hong Kong Trade Development Council and co-organized by UNESCO Hong Kong Association and Hong Kong Institute of Education for Sustainable Development. As the new normal days, this is a virtual session. We really appreciate and welcome again your participation. I believe we are all familiar with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals established by the United Nations in 2015. These goals certainly are not just published and printed on paper, but are truly world action plans to be implemented and accomplished before 2030. As such, I think this is a great opportunity today for all of us to hear from all the distinguished speakers and leaders on the SDG implementation progress and status. To kick off this session, I'm very pleased to invite two key leaders from our respective organizers to give the opening messages. Now my pleasure to firstly introduce Ms. Sophie Chung, Assistant Executive Director of Hong Kong Trade Development Council, and followed by Professor Karen Zhang, Acting President of the Hong Kong Association, UNESCO, and also the Director of the Hong Kong Institute of Education for Sustainable Development. So Ms. Zhang, please.
Professor Zhang, Professor Leung, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, a very warm welcome to the Eco-Asia Conference 2020. Today's session features Sustainable Development Goals Implementation and Brighter Future, which marks the HKTDC's first collaboration with the UNESCO Hong Kong Association and the Hong Kong Institute of Education for Sustainable Development in the Eco-Asia Conference. The 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, are the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. Today's session will examine how companies are incorporating their SDGs into their business development strategy. Heavyweight industry experts will share their experiences and insights and discuss the way forward. The Eco-Asia Conference lasts 2 days and a half and is indeed one of the anchor events of the HKTDC Autumn Sourcing Week Online. The Autumn Sourcing Week Online is a virtual fair organized in view of the COVID-19 outbreak and related travel restrictions, and we hope it provides a viable option for business activities over the internet. The virtual show runs from the 16th to the 27th of November, featuring products and solutions from 11 sectors, offering a one-stop sourcing platform for global buyers. One of the highlight sectors is, of course, ecotech, which gathers close to 100 environmental solution providers online, covering areas such as air and water treatment, eco-friendly products, green transportation, green buildings, energy efficiency, waste management, recycling, and many more. Exhibitors come from both the private and public sectors, and I'm pleased to share that the Environment Bureau of the Hong Kong SAR government has set up a virtual booth at the Autumn Sourcing Week Online to showcase some of its major environmental projects. And I would encourage all of you to visit the virtual booth online. We are grateful for the Environment Bureau's great support for both the Autumn Sourcing Week Online as well as the Eco-Asia Conference. We'd also like to thank the UNESCO Hong Kong Association and the Hong Kong Institute of Education for Sustainable Development for jointly organizing this session with us. I wish you all the best of health and business. Stay well Thank you.
各位嘉宾，大家好。香港联合国教科文组织协会、香港可持续发展教育学院在香港开展联合国可持续发展教育项目已踏进18周年。2015年，联合国大会通过2030可持续发展议程，确定了全球可持续发展目标后，我们透过举办不同主题的可持续发展论坛积极推进，包括2017年变革、创新、转型与可持续发展论坛，2018年科技创新与可持续发展论坛，2019年产业规划与可持续发展论坛，并将专题演讲、圆桌讨论、展览展示、案例发布分析、专业继续教育融合在一起，已有数万人参加。2020年是联合国75周年，在今年初，联合国发起了全球最大规模的联合国75周年对话。香港在我们的主持下，开展了金融中心的气候与环境可持续性、香港和大湾区的教育、科技和人才、信任与支持下的可持续管制3场全球线上对话，邀约了专家学者、公职人员、社会要人、行业领袖等进行分享与讨论。对话吸引了来自全球各国的听众。3场对话贯穿科技、人才、治理，反映了香港在可持续发展目标的实施路径，总结了香港可持续发展金融发展里程碑。创新人才的培养刻不容缓，以及有效治理是信任建立的基础，是可持续发展的保证。我们的对话内容和数据也汇合在联合国2020可持续发展目标报告中。各位嘉宾，新科技、新思潮将进一步改变世界，新产业、新生态、新模式不断涌现，推动可持续发展目标，企业不可或缺。随着联合国全球契约发布联合国可持续发展目标企业行动指南，以引导企业根据联合国可持续发展目标调整其战略，并评估和管理企业对目标的贡献。今年，在我们给予联合国全球契约的地区报告中，发表了企业可持续发展规划与治理是践行联合国可持续发展目标企业行动指南的施工图。企业透过可持续发展规划与治理实施的全过程，包括研究、推动决策、规划方案的制定、执行与评估，来协助企业运用新技术和创新能力，开拓商机，优化治理，以及吸引人才更有效执行，使用全球共同语言，增强资本及社会的信赖。因此，我们总结了专才培训、合作治理、数据与创新是我们有效推动企业参与可持续发展目标的3大支柱。我们透过可持续发展规划师培训，帮助企业及组织培养制定可持续发展规划及治理方面的专才。可持续发展规划师亦可带领企业通过企业可持续发展认证，展现企业对可持续发展目标的贡献。就在刚刚的10月，我们结合可持续发展企业的认证指标，与香港品质保证局共同参加了2020湾区可持续发展企业大奖的评审。 奖项吸引了各行业企业的积极参与。全球可持续发展目标以为企业在拓展商机、吸引人才、扩大合作、获得资本及社会信任带来清晰和明确的帮助。非常感谢今年的论坛能够与香港贸易发展局联合主办，作为亚洲环保论坛的组成部分，亦有助于更多的人了解及关注我们在可持续发展目标实施与展望。香港作为一国两制的亚洲国际都会，携手各地，把握“一带一路”发展机遇，协同粤港澳大湾区，以专业人才培训、推进合作治理、数据与创新三大支柱，推进全球可持续发展目标。可持续思维引领可持续行为，携手推进可持续发展目标，共筑可持续未来。Thanks to the overseas participants, let's highlight the key words. The Sustainable Development Goals has brought clear and definite help to enterprise in expanding business opportunities, attracting talents, expanding cooperation, gaining capital and social trust. UNESCO Hong Kong Association and Hong Kong Institute of Education for Sustainable Development assists enterprise in advancing the Sustainable Development Goals with the 3 pillars of professional training, promoting cooperative governance, big data, and innovation. Think sustainably, act sustainably. Together, we could pave a brighter future for all. Thank you all. 谢谢大家，并祝本届论坛圆满成功。
Thanks a lot from both Ms. Zheng for their opening messages, which clearly set out the objectives and articulate the significant meaning and importance of the session today. For the next 1.5 hours, we have quite a rich agenda with 7 distinguished speakers to share their view, experience, and insight on the SDGs implementation. And now, let me introduce our first distinguished speaker, Mr. James Gong, Director of the Sustainable Development at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. His topic today is UN Sustainable Development Goals nurtures corporate progress. In the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, one big challenge is the reality that business as normal is no longer an option. Actually, this statement is what I heard from Mr. Gong in one of his recent talks on SDGs. So today, we look to Mr. Gong's talk, how the business enterprise can deal with this new normal challenge, full engagement in SDGs. Now let's welcome Mr. Gong.
So good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to have the chance to speak to you today. My name is James Gom. I'm Director of Sustainable Development Goals and Vision 2050 at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. I work for the WBCSD, and we are a 200 strong business membership organization. And these companies that are WBCSD's members come from all over the world, from pretty much every sector. And they try to work together what it is difficult to achieve, what is difficult for any company individually to achieve. And that is to accelerate the transition to a sustainable world where over 9 billion people by 2050 can live well within planetary boundaries. So that is our mission. May not be familiar with WBCSD's logo, but I think some of these company logos may be familiar to you. These are WBCSD's corporate members at present. As I say, 200 of them from pretty much every sector, countries all over the world. So we are represented by a huge diversity of organizations, each of trying to advance sustainability in their businesses and in their regions. And our work really focuses at the moment on 6 key areas. We're working to advance the circular economy, to move to a world without waste. We're working in the areas of cities and mobility, to try and create clean and connected cities. We're obviously working in climate and energy, working towards realizing the ambition of net zero carbon. We're in the areas of food and nature, working to achieve healthy people and a healthy planet. We're in the area of people, meeting the basic needs for everybody. And we're working to redefine value and working towards sustainable stakeholder capitalism. So those are our areas of focus. And today I'd like to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals and how business is engaged with them and some of the progress we've been seeing. I think first thing to say and to recognize, which we will all be very familiar with, is that we live in a very complex world. There are many risks, unprecedented risks that are now facing our society, from the climate emergency, which we're already seeing play out in certain geographies, more and more climate tipping points being breached day by day, and ever more conscious of the threat of climate change. We're also facing a biodiversity crisis, with the number of species on Earth facing extinction set to reach over 1 million in the next decade, and 70% of life on Earth having been lost in the last 40 years or so. We're facing crisis of disenfranchisement from many sections of society. People feel they are being left behind in the inequality that's inherent in our current model of how we operate. And of course, perhaps most tangible of all at the moment is the COVID-19 pandemic and the unprecedented disruption that's causing to the world. So we have many challenges to deal with as a society. Luckily, we do have 2 historic frameworks to guide us through addressing these challenges. Both of them set up in 2015, the Paris Agreement providing a map forward for us on how to tackle climate change, and the broader agenda of the SDGs, a universal historic framework agreed by all UN member states, 17 goals and 169 targets underneath them, which point the way forward to a world in which we can address these challenges and work together to do so. And I'd really like to emphasize that from my perspective and from WBCSD's perspective, we see the SDGs as being the following things. First of all, they are a historic framework. The fact that all world leaders were able to align and agree around this framework is really a historic feat, and we should value the process and the outcome that came out of that. They are a universal framework, so whereas other development frameworks have been perhaps more focused around developing economies, this really is a framework for all countries around the world, whether they're rich or whether they're poor. There is something to do for everybody. And the real power of this agenda comes from the fact that it's very detailed. It's not just 17 goals, it's 169 targets that underpin those goals, and the real power of the SDGs sits in that detail. And finally, we need to recognize that it's an ambitious, transformative agenda. It's not about business as usual. It's about doing things differently. It's about working together to really transform key elements of our societies and economies. So that's how we see the SDGs. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic will have a huge impact on our ability to reach these SDGs. Emerging research from the United Nations is showing that they expect the pandemic to have a very high level of negative impact on efforts to reach SDGs 1, 2, 3, 8, 10. We see 71 million people being pushed back into extreme poverty. Hunger will obviously be an issue as supply chains start to suffer. Even aside from the pandemic impacts, the impact on health will be substantial as less people get vaccinated for other diseases, particularly among child populations. That impact will be intense. GDP obviously will suffer, predicted to be down by 4.2% per capita globally within 2020. And also the inequalities in our current system will be exacerbated by the pandemic as well. And also other negative impacts more moderately on a range of other goals too. So the pandemic will have a huge impact on our SDG efforts. But I think it's very important that we keep the SDGs at the center of our thinking as we try and recover from the pandemic. There's lots of talk about building back better, but the SDGs absolutely need to be at the heart of this conversation. I think because of the challenges, we can't say now that we abandon the SDGs because they're too difficult, because they are the framework that will help us realize our ambition of a stronger and better recovery. So they are the way we recover from COVID-19 if we can still follow them and use them as our North Star moving forward. From a business perspective, our position at WBCSD is simple. We simply say that the SDGs will not be delivered without strong business participation. The business has a critical role to play as an engine of employment, a source of technology and innovation, a driver of finance, and the key role it has to play in respect for human rights throughout its considerable and far-reaching value chains. The business has a critical role to play in this agenda. It's also an agenda that needs business, but it's also an agenda that business needs. This is a very important framework for business to be aware of. There are key implications for business of the SDGs. And we break these down into 4 buckets of implication. There's the cost of doing nothing to business. There's the potential opportunity to business. There are governance and transparency implications for business. And then there's also the need to change the way we do things as businesses and work closer together in collaboration. So I'll go into each of these elements in a little bit more detail. First of all, in terms of the cost of inaction, obviously there is a huge operational risk. So we're seeing already the impacts of a huge disruption in the global pandemic. More resilience and more planning in line with SDG 3 could have perhaps lessened some of the operational risk associated with it. Similarly, with climate change, we're seeing climate events play out, and they're underlining the operational risk that's at stake for us not achieving the SDGs. We also face reputational risk as the public become more aligned with the principles behind this agenda, and then whether it's consumers or investors looking at business and thinking business is not doing enough, the reputational risk to business there. Regulatory risk as more and more governments embrace the SDGs and implement them. It's the following legislation that will then impact business. And then market disruption. If your competitors are aligned with this agenda and bringing out new and innovative products to contribute to it, the potential disruption for your business there is clear. And then this is just underlined by the global risks report that was brought out by the World Economic Forum earlier this year, in which the top 5 likely risks all focused on key environmental issues that were very much central to the SDG. But on the flip side, there are also historic opportunities emerging from this agenda. There is the Better Business, Better World report, which came out in 2017, which highlights a number of new and exciting markets that business can leverage as it works to achieve the SDGs. There is better ways to manage your risk by integrating the SDGs into your strategy, being aware of some of the challenges that are coming your way, and being able to manage those in a more comprehensive way. It's an opportunity for us to renew trust in business, which is waning in many economies around the world. And it's an opportunity for better access to capital as financial markets embrace the SDGs and many of the concepts underlying them. And just to go into a bit more detail on that opportunity for business piece, the Better Business, Better World report by the Business and Sustainable Development Commission did a study which estimated at least a $12 trillion per year market value of achieving the SDGs by 2030, and breaks that down into opportunities around food and agriculture, cities and urban mobility, energy and materials, and health and well-being, creating more than 380 million jobs in the process. So real economic opportunities for business if it is in line with the SDGs and if it can understand them and unlock them and channel its innovative capacity into delivering the Sustainable Development Goals. There are also implications very strongly on the governance and transparency side. We're starting to see a number of new frameworks and new pieces of legislation emerging, which are asking business to disclose more on how they are contributing and factoring in different elements of the SDGs into their strategic considerations. The Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure is one example, which has recently become a mandatory reporting requirement in New Zealand, and I think other countries will follow that trend. the EU taxonomy, the European Union, asking business to show how it contributes to a series of key sustainability-related criteria in order to unlock financing there, and different frameworks coming out, providing guidance to business on how they should be integrating the SDGs into their thinking, into their strategy. And business will have to show that moving forward. And then finally, this idea of collaboration. Business is used to collaborating with partners, of course, but I think that given the scale of transformation that is needed to realize the SDGs, this collaboration will have to increase exponentially and in new ways. So, and obviously companies can take their own action to achieve the SDGs. They can engage with strategic partnerships with NGOs or other institutions to try and advance particular issues. But to really drive change, we need to see partnerships at the sector level, with whole sectors of companies coming together to understand the SDGs and move the needle. And we also have to see systemic partnerships with different sectors combining to address a wide variety of issues across quite complex webs of interaction and systems. Just to give you a few examples, at WBCSD, we've been working with a number of sectors to advance what we call Sdg Sector Roadmaps. So bringing representatives from entire sectors together, asking those companies to meet and engage in discussion around what they think are the key ways that their sector can contribute to the SDGs, and mapping out the most important impact opportunities for the sector, and creating roadmaps and plans to make those impacts a reality, and setting the actions that they need to take as a sector to move that thing forward. So we've worked with the chemical sector, the forest sector, the cement sector, currently working with the electric utilities sector, including CLP, and also with the tire sector, all to create a common view and an accountable roadmap for that sector in order to maximize its potential to contribute to the SDG. And then at the systemic level, we're also involved in a number of different partnerships, bringing different sectors together to address much broader and more complex value chains across different systems. One example is the Food and Land Use Coalition, and that's working together with organizations like the EAT Forum and WRI, but also with businesses like Unilever and Yara and Olam, to advance sustainability across the food value chain from farm to fork, and really tackling the complex set of issues that sit at the heart of that. Another example, the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, which has over 40 different companies from throughout the plastics value chain, from chemical companies through to food and drink companies, through to waste disposal companies, all thinking about how they can come together to significantly tackle the issue of marine plastic waste, particularly in parts of Asia. So this is an initiative that's already 40 members strong, has committed over $1 billion over the next 5 years to tackle this issue. So I think when we think about how well business is doing with the SDGs, the fact is business is very strongly engaged. We're seeing WBCSD members strongly integrate the SDGs into their communication. A few examples on the screen here. And business is looking closely at the SDGs to see how it can contribute. And some statistics here from an analysis of WBCSD member reporting. 96% of our member reports reference the SDGs in some way. 84% are identifying priority SDGs. 46% are mentioning the SDGs in their CEO statements. And 20% are mentioning the SDGs at target level, which is good to see. And the graph at the bottom here just shows you which SDGs companies are mentioning most frequently. Some receive more attention, SDG 8 and SDG 13 around climate. Some receive a lot of attention. Some of the social SDGs a bit less, and the biodiversity related SDGs also fairly low. So it shows you, although there is engagement with the SDGs, there's a bit of a mismatch sometimes on which SDGs business can feel it can contribute to. I think these figures sum the current state of affairs up quite well. We have 71% of CEOs, according to this study by the UN Global Compact of over 1,000 CEOs last year. 71% of those CEOs believe that they have a critical role to play as businesses to achieving the SDGs. But only 21% of those CEOs believe they are currently playing that role. So business very clearly understands that it has a key part to play in this SDG agenda, but at the moment, the consensus is that business is not doing everything it can do, so it needs to look for more opportunities to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. And this underlines that in a little bit more detail, with the same CEOs commenting on which SDGs they thought they were contributing to significantly. Many SDGs where the business thinks it's doing all right job, particularly around decent work and economic growth. Health, somewhat ironically given the current state, but we thought last year we were doing very well on health. Gender equality, we think we're making good progress on. But again, business sees itself as perhaps not fulfilling its potential, particularly around SDG 14 and 15, life below water and life on land, which are critical given the current state of the biodiversity crisis. And the more socially focused SDGs around inequality, no poverty, zero hunger. Business feels that it can do more in these spaces. So I think the challenge ahead of us is to try and think, what is the role of business in helping to address these issues more impactfully? How can we mobilize platforms and collaborative initiatives to try and enhance both our understanding as businesses of these areas and our impacts through our actions, and what we can do to really contribute to some of the SDGs that we are not as advanced in as yet. And this is my final slide. This is really what I think the key challenges for us are as businesses moving forward, and what we need to solve and get right in order to really advance on this agenda and to unlock opportunities, because there are opportunities for businesses there. The SDGs can help us unlock new markets, as I said before. They can help us better manage our risks. They can help us foster a stronger license to operate. And as financial markets start to integrate the SDGs into their thinking, they can give us better access to capital. But unlocking those opportunities will only be possible through two key buckets of activity. And the first is strategic integration. So we have to be able to use the SDGs as a framework to identify opportunities for innovation. If we are not positioning the SDGs as a key input into our strategic thinking, then we miss out on opportunities quite substantially. So we need to understand the state of the world. We need to understand what progress is being made on the SDGs. We need to understand the SDG targets themselves and what they make up. And only then can we start to think about what opportunities there are for business as we try and work towards this new world that governments unanimously have said this is where we want to be by 2030. What is the role of business in realizing that? So that strategic integration piece is critically important. And then once we've integrated strategically, we have to then be able to communicate robustly on how we're doing with those efforts. So at the moment, I think some of the SDG reporting that's out there is very superficial and consists of just putting nice, pretty SDG logos on reports. But really, we have to be able to find the metrics and find the KPIs that can explain clearly what impact we're having on the SDGs in both a positive and a negative way. And then so different actors can then be assured that our reporting is robust and transparent, and that they can use that as a way to reward companies that are performing well, either through a lower cost of capital or enhanced license to operate, etc. So those are the challenges that lie ahead of us. We're already 5 years into the SDGs. The clock is ticking in terms of where we need to be. We have 10 years to solve these issues. It's a small window of opportunity, but it's also a critical window of opportunity. What we do in the next 10 years will define how the world is for the next few decades and beyond. So an important window of opportunity for us to take. And the COVID-19 crisis gives us another incentive, but also another opportunity to try and build back some of these systems whose fragility has been exposed, and help us to build back better and to use the SDGs as the North Star to guide these efforts. So I'll stop there, but very happy to receive any questions by email At any time, if you have any, my email address is com@wbcsd.org. And thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today.
Thank you, Mr. Gom. Really insightful comment on how the SDGs can nurture corporate progress in this complex world and the areas you identify for enhanced engagement by all stakeholders in the next decade to come. Thank you again. Our next distinguished speaker is Mr. Albert Wong, CEO of the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, and his topic is Innovative Technology and Sustainable Development. It is no question that innovative technology is of crucial importance for sustainable development, and we are excited today Mr. Wong comes and shares with us the innovative solution developed in the Hong Kong Science Park can transfer into a viable business with also support from the Science and Technology Park. Please welcome Mr. Albert Wong.
Hi, it's a pleasure for me to be talking to the group about sustainability of Hong Kong. I'm Albert Wong of the Science Park of Hong Kong. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about building a sustainable future through innovation and technology in Hong Kong. First of all, I want to talk about the sustainability development goal of the UNESCO. There's 17 of them, and this time we're going to focus on the 11 and 12 in terms of sustainable cities and communities and responsible consumption and production. We cannot solve all the problems in the world, but we can do some of that. And our focus is in these two areas. First of all, we want to talk about the air pollution in Hong Kong. I think all of us are experiencing some sort of pollution and comfort in the way we live. And we are seeing air pollution hitting highest level in Hong Kong in the past few years. And ozone pollution is also rising. And we're also seeing hottest temperature coming up. So we are feeling what is going on around us. We have to start doing something. And then in terms of landfill, Hong Kong is a small city, a metropolitan. We are creating a lot of waste, a lot of solid waste, and environmental groups are warning us that dark periods is ahead of us ever since 1991. If you look at the bar chart on the bottom right, you can see that only about 30% of our solid waste is being recycled. So and our landfill is filling up. So we are going to hit some sort of a problem if we do not start doing something. And first of all, we need to reduce our usage, and we have to start doing more recycling. Basically, we're talking about reduce and reuse and recycle. We have to do a lot more of that. From a science park standpoint, we are doing a number of things, and the focus in the areas of mobility, environment, business, and living. And because if you have been to the science park, you will know that we are a small community of about 15,000 people. And this is big enough and small enough to experiment a lot of different things, but small enough to make it work. So we are focusing on these few areas. First of all, in terms of mobility, this is the map of our science park. It is about 22 hectares, about 13,000 people, about 28 buildings in the park. On the left-hand side, you can see that we are trying some of the commercial electric public transportation. We are providing a lot of charging and electric vehicle so that we can run a sustainable transportation. On the right-hand side, this is a first in Hong Kong. We're going to try autonomous self-driving car. We will be doing the proof of concept POC in the next couple of months, starting from December 2020. And we will run that bus around the science park in about 1 year's time. So we will be providing smart mobility to the environment, to the ecosystem, to the community, so that we can enjoy some sort of mobility, smart mobility improvement. In terms of environment, we started something new also. This is we call it RVM, reverse vending machine. It collects bottles, cans, and paper drinking boxes. What it does is that it will scan the barcode and will give you some sort of credit after you throw in your recycled, and the recycled bottles and cans will be destroyed on that spot and be collected. more importantly, it's not just the collection, but also the collection of data. The dashboard on the right-hand side shows you what we have done. For example, on the extreme right, the blue shows that 19,000 bottles have been collected in the past 1 month, 12,000 of aluminum can, and 4,000 paper boxes. So these will tell you what are the waste, and you can see from the pie chart that how many bottles, cans, and boxes have been collected. And this is only in 1 month in the society and the community of about 13,000 people. So this is not just a collection, but also some kind of data analytics to tell what is going on, but also because it is a collection and data recording, we can provide some sort of credit. For example, you can get a few dollars in the restaurant by throwing in your recycling. The other thing is that because we have about 20 to 30 restaurants in the Science Park for providing for 13,000 people, and because of the pandemic, a lot of people are buying takeaway, and it is actually pretty disgusting seeing all these non-recycled plastic boxes being used. So we will be subsidizing biodegradable plastics, and you can see the difference in terms of degradability. More than 100 years for the traditional plastics and paper-coated cups and boxes. With the biodegradable, we're talking about 1 year or a few days in terms of biodegrading, and we will be subsidizing. And we want the restaurants to be using these. We also have other things going on in terms of smart businesses, unmanned shop, unmanned robotic centers, and robotic kitchens. If you come to Science Park, you can experience a lot of these things happening. There are not a lot of people walking around. In a tea shop, you can just walk in, buy your stuff, and we also do a lot of data analytics. This is another one, the InnoCell. We are in the Science Park building a new residential building of about 500 residents. And the way we build it is that we use the MIC, Modular Integrated Construction technology, which means that most of the construction, including the renovation inside, are being done in the factory in a controlled environment. They are all moved in on site to be assembled like Lego. And this has been done in a record amount of time very quickly, but also not just time, but also reduce waste, improve safety, improve construction time and cost, accelerate ROI, and we just received an award in environmental protection. This construction was done in a record amount of time. We will be opening up for business by the end of this year. So you can see that in the Science Park, we're doing a lot of new things, trying new stuff in terms of robotics, environmental protection, construction methods, and we want to consider ourselves a testing ground for new technologies. I would invite you to come to the Science Park. We are next to the Chinese University in Hong Kong. This is what we have. We have about 4 million square feet, 400,000 square meter of floor space. We now have about 900 technology companies in the Science Park today. And I was talking about 13,000 working population in the Science Park today. Of the 13,000, 9,000 of them are research and development workers. So we are the biggest concentration of research and development in Hong Kong. And we also, out of the 900 companies, about 420 of them are startups. We run an incubation program, meaning that if you're a younger generation startup, you want to start your own technology companies, we will help you go through your product development, your funding cycle, your industrial connection, everything. And 420 of them is what we have right now in the incubation program. We also run an investor program helping park companies. All the 900 companies in the Science Park could benefit from our investment team in raising investment funding, bringing in venture capitalists. And we also, as a Science Park, we also are ourselves a investment. We have a roughly $80 million venture capital fund. So we are doing investment, we're helping the ecosystem develop, and we also bring in research and development people in the Science Park. In that sense, you can see that in the past 18 years, we've been around 18 years since 2002. We now have we have 2 unicorns coming out from here. SenseTime is one of them. Lala Move comes from Science Park. We have about 720 graduates from our incubation program. Our investment program has raised close to 30 billion Hong Kong dollars of investment funding for the park companies. And we have a $600 million venture fund. I was talking about $80 million US dollars, $600 million US dollars. And our fund has a leverage of 13 times. So we are a big ecosystem of startup, technology people, big companies, incubation program, investors, and also adoption. So if you are doing some technology development, whether you're a startup, you're a big company, Science Park is a place that you want to think about. The other thing that the most important thing that we're doing right now is that we want to build a sustainable future for Hong Kong. We want to connect the government, the industry, the academia, the startup to build an environment of mobility, environment, business, and living. We are a trial site for the smart city of Hong Kong. We want to try a innovative technology, innovative economy, and we also want to improve our quality of life. We believe that green tech, environmental protection cannot come at a cost. It has to provide economy of scale, economy of businesses. So, for example, when we talk about the biodegradable or the collection, it has to be economically viable. And this is the ecosystem that the Science Park is offering. We have big companies like Scania, Siemens, Hitachi, and also a lot of awesome, like lighting related, LED related, or energy related, transportation related. And we also have a lot of up and coming new startups. They are in the areas of batteries, optical sensing, a lot of different areas that we are a big ecosystem of over 60 companies in green tech. What our main focus is to drive technology and build an ecosystem combining large companies, small companies to help grow that ecosystem. And green technology is a core area for Science Park. And we hope that by building up that ecosystem for Hong Kong, we can build that future for Hong Kong much greener, much sustainable, and also at the same time development of our younger generation. Thank you very much.
Really thanks from Mr. Wong's giving us a deep dive into the innovative solutions developed by various enterprises with support and resources from the technology ecosystem by the Science and Technology Park. It's really encouraging. Thank you. 今天的研讨会有很丰富的内容，一个接着一个，下一个的专题分享是循环经济与产业发展。我们都知道，循环经济与资源有效的使用和环境保护很重要，所以今天我们很荣幸邀请到中国循环经济协会的副秘书长管世轩工程师来阐述循环经济概念，并在当前中国处于转向高品质发展和走向生态文明的新常态时期，来给我们介绍发展循环经济的战略、成效和展望。以下有请管秘书长。
好嘞，各位朋友、女士们、先生们，下午好。很遗憾，今天我不能与大家一起在香港相聚，但我现代科技的发展呢，使我能在北京一样的很高兴的通过视频的方式能够参加今天的会议。按照主办方的这个要求，我演讲的题目是循环经济与产业发展。循环经济可作为让世界变得更加可持续的一项指导原则。在循环经济的概念下，我们有了新的生产方式、新的生活方式、新的消费模式。发展循环经济是我国生态文明建设和绿色发展的重要途径。通过企业循环式生产、产业循环式组合、园区循环化改造，突破产业共生、资源循环的技术瓶颈，推进资源循环利用产业提质增效，提高经济发展质量。今年是中国“13+5”的收官之年，也是““14+5”的开局之年。下面我想分成3个部分，就循环经济与产业发展介绍一下中国循环经济。第一部分，循环经济内涵。 人类的文明历程经历了原始文明到农业文明到工业文明，以及到现在的生态文明的过程。那么党的18大要求大力推进生态文明建设，树立尊重自然、顺应自然、保护自然的生态文明理念，努力建设美丽中国，实现中华民族的永续发展。那么关于循环经济的内涵与定位，原国务院副总理马凯同志曾经是这么定义的，他认为循环经济是一种以资源高效循环利用为核心，以减量化再利用资源化为原则，以低消耗低排放高效率为基本特征，符合可持续发展理念的经济增长模式，是对大量生产、大量消费、大量废弃的传统增长模式的根本变革。那么循环经济有3个基本原则，我们大家都知道，其实主要就是说从生产和消费端，也就在输入端，尽可能的减少资源的使用以及减少污染物的排放。那么在中间的过程多次使用来减少一次污染。那么在末端输出端，就是使用的功能完成后，重新变成再生资源。那么这是这个非常有名的德国卡伦堡循环经济的模式，这个是中国鲁北化工循环经济的工业的一个模式，不同颜色显示了不同的这个循环，然后有互相之间这个运用这个循环经济理念，然后进行这种废物减量化、资源化、能量梯级利用以及水的循环利用的一种模式。那么下面讲第2部分，就关于循环经济发展相关政策和成效。那么这部分我想从3个方面来进行阐述。首先是循环经济相关政策及法规，第2是循环经济发展成效，第3是国际交流与合作。首先第1个，循环经济相关政策法规，早在1996年，德国就颁布了循环经济的废弃物管理法。那么2000年的时候呢，日本也颁布了循环型社会基本形成法。那么中国在09年的时候呢，颁布了世界上的第3个循环经济国家专门法规的一部法，叫做《中华人民共和国循环经济促进法》。那么在13年的时候呢，我国又颁布了循环经济发展战略及近期的行动规划。那么这个规划也是世界上第1个颁布有关循环经济国家专项规划的国家。那么这里我想要阐述的一个问题就是说，循环经济到底对产业发展会发挥一种什么作用？我在想，是不是可以从3个方面来理解。首先第1个就是为经济增长开辟了新的资源，比如说一个年产800到1000万吨的钢铁企业，如果全部回收可燃气体，按照日值计算，可以提供一个120万千瓦发电厂所需的能量。如果全部回收固体废弃物，可以满足300万吨水泥的需要的主要原料，这是第1个作用。第2个作用，有效的减少污染物的排放。那么据测算，如果用矿石炼钢，能耗为 1.11 吨标煤每吨钢，而用废钢炼钢能耗为 0.2 吨标煤每吨钢，且可以减轻空气污染 88%， 水质污染 76%。第3个作用，有利于提高经济效益。目前我国冶金、有色、电力、化工等8个高耗能行业，单位产品能耗比世界先进水平平均要高 30% 以上。那么工业用水重复率要低10到15个百分点。适当的提高循环利用率，就能够较大幅度的提高这些重点行业的这个经济效益。这是关于第1个方面。那么第2个方面，我想阐述的就是关于这个循环经济的发展成效。这个我想从7个方面来展开来做一个简单的一个介绍。首先第1个就是我国循环经济发展的战略格局初步形成。那么这里头呢，我想从2个层面。第1个层面就是中国已经构建了循环型的这个产业体系，对吧？循环型的产业体系。那么比如说以化工、建材、纺织、钢铁、电力等 11个方面的循环型的工业体系，那么以种植业、林业这个以及等等的5个方面的这个循环型的农业体系，以这个旅游业、这个零售业、物流业等5个方面的循环型的服务业体系，这是第一个，构建了这个循环型的这个产业体系。那么在社会层面，大力推动了这个循环经济发展。那么比如说这个完善了再生资源回收体系，推动了再生资源利用产业的发展，发展了再制造，实施了这个绿色建筑行动，构建了绿色综合的交通运输体系，推进了餐厨垃圾的利用，推行了绿色消费，实施了这个大循环战略。这里面主要的是这个我们国家搞了个这个10百千行动，10嘛主要是指的这个10大这个示范工程，100就是创建100个循环经济的示范城市，1000就是培育了1000个循环经济的这个示范企业。这是关于第一个方面成效。第二个方面成效就是在主要的重点行业和领域形成了具有中国特色的循环经济发展模式。那么我国已经成功的在生产领域推行了循环经济的发展模式，那么与西方重点在消费和流通领域发展循环经济呢，形成了鲜明的特色对比。那么主要是从资源产出、资源消耗、资源综合利用和废物排放4个方面，在宏观和工业园区2个层面分别规定了22个和14个循环经济的评价指标，建立了循环经济的指标体系。那么我举几个例子，这里面包括比如说能源的产出率、水资源的产出率、矿产资源的总回收率、共伴生矿综合利用率、工业固体废弃物综合利用量、工业固体废弃物的综合利用率、主要再生资源回收利用总量、主要再生有色金属占有色金属总产量的比重、农业灌溉用水有效利用系数、工业用水重复利用率、秸秆综合利用率等等这些指标。那么截止到去年，我举几个例子，好比说这个秸秆的综合利用率，我国已经达到了 86.7%。那么像这个工业固体废弃物的综合利用率达到了 56.4%， 那么水资源的产出率达到了 95.22%。 那么也就是说，我们在这些领域都有了自己独具特色的发展模式。那么第3个方面呢，我想说的这个成效就是说，发展理念逐步树立。那么在发展循环经济的过程当中呢，非常重视标准的引领作用。这里面主要是这个在许多领域制定了循环经济的这个标准体系，在标准体系下开展相关的国标、团标、行标的制定修订工作。第二是在2016年开始，李克强总理倡导企业领跑者标准行动，在184个领域开展了相关行业企业领域的这个领跑者的评价行动。这里面我想举几个例子，好比说这个下面这个国标，对吧？对这个电子电器循环经济产品评价导则，那么这个行标，这个铝工业的发展循环经济环境保护导则，那么地方标准呢，好比说水泥行业循环经济的评价实施指南。第4个方面呢，我想阐述的就是这个法规的政策体系在不断完善。虽然我国制定了这个循环经济促进法，也发布了一系列相关的这种行动计划、实施意见，但是地方呢，还是这个相对应的已经出台了对应的这个循环经济的地方法规。那么到目前为止呢，全国有10个省市出台了地方的循环经济这种促进条例。第5个方面呢，我想阐述一下，就是关于这个循环型的生产方式得以推行，循环型的产业体系逐渐形成。这个呢，我想是不是可以这么理解，就是中国在循环经济这个生产方式也好，产业体系方面呢，着重的按照下面的7个原则。第一是空间布局合理化，第2是产业结构最优化，第3是产业链接循环化，第4是资源利用高效化，第5是污染治理集中化，第6是基础设施绿色化， 第7是运行管理规范化的7条原则。那么截止到2019年吧，对吧？对中国的国家级的这个园区呢，进行了70%的改造。那么也就是说，大约改造了552个国家级的这个相关的这个循环经济工业园区。那么地方呢，截止到去年为止呢，改造了将近50%，大约是1991个这个省级的循环经济园区，对吧？这是关于这个第5方面的这个成效。第6方面就是这个再生资源回收利用体系逐渐形成，资源循环利用产业不断壮大。这里面有几个数据，那么到2009年到2012年吧，2009年到2012年这4年，中央财政投入累计33.5亿元，那么支持了75个城市新建和改扩建51000多个网点，300多个分拣中心，60多个集散市场，支持建设了100多个区域性的回收利用基地。那么试点城市的重点品种回收率超过了60%。那么在“15”的发展目标呢，我们的主要产出率比2015年提高15%，主要废弃物的循环利用率刚才说了达到了54.6%。那么一般工业固体废物综合利用率达到73%，农作物秸秆刚才说84.6%，对吧？等等吧，这些都是我们取得的这个成效。那么第6方面成效就是这个绿色消费模式的这个形成，对吧？绿色消费的模式的形成。那么这里面我就想有几个，主要是建立了这个绿色消费教育制度、绿色标志制度、绿色采购制度、绿色消费监测制度等等这些制度。我举几个例子，比如说在快递行业，那么以顺丰为领头羊的一大批这个快递企业开始推广可折叠的多次使用的这个快递箱。那么在这个商业超市物流领域呢，在大型超市物流的配送使用了这个折叠的周转箱。那么在这个外卖行业呢，我们也开始试行以秸秆为基料的这个快餐盒，对吧？但是呢，这里面也有一些问题，对吧？比如说循环经济的技术创新能力有待进一步加强，统计基础还比较薄弱，评价制度有待健全，循环经济能力建设服务体系有待进一步的加强。第三方面是关于这个循环经济的国际合作，这是循环经济协会获得的世界经济论坛的一个奖项。那么这个是与相关的世界自然经济会啊等等这些方面这个进行的这种合作。那么第3部分呢，我想简单的介绍一下未来的循环经济的一个展望。那么首先呢，也是分成这个3个方面。第一个方面就是中国，那么在未来的10到15年仍然将维持这个固废的这个增量存量这个居于世界的首位。那么第2个问题呢，就是存在着这个固废含有粉尘、重金属、酸碱、有机污染物等有毒有害介质，会造成气、水、土跨介质的复合型污染，这是中国存在的2大主要的这个废物的这个问题。那么针对这个问题呢，我们就提出来了这个战略思考。那么这里头呢，主要是运用这个大数据、云计算、无人工厂、人工智能等，对固体废物的循环利用过程进行这个智能化控制，特别是这个多项态智慧感知、全过程精细管控。那么包括深空、深海、孤岛、移动源的特殊场景的原位利用。那么这里头下面呢有个展望，就是2025年、2035年。那么我们的想法是，那么到了2025年呢，预期在典型废物经行管控理论方法、在线监测、废物源头减量等等这些方面呢，能够获得一些优先的这个突破。那么到了2035年的时候呢，我们要引领战略区域建成无废型的社会的这个范式。这是关于这个一个废物源头减量减害循环利用技术体系的一个简单的一个框图表述，我在这里就不做更多的这个解读了。第3方面就关于我们国家“15”，就是说从明年开始“15”的循环经济发展目标展望，这里面呢也有3条。那么第1条呢是关于这个循环经济体系的这个初步的这种形成，对吧？也就是说在生产方式、重点行业，那么产出率 这几个方面呢，都将会有所突破。那么在这个资源战略保证方面呢，我们将着重的提出在这个开采、进口、再生资源3位一体的资源保障体系。那么这一次为什么专门要提到这个进口跟这个再生资源的问题？那么大家都知道，这个中国在进口方面，废物资源进口方面是管控的比较严的。那么再生资源呢，那么逐步的会成为我们国家这个战略性资源的又一个这个保障体系，对吧？这是关于第2方面。第3方面就是刚才讲到的这个绿色生活方式的这个形成，绿色产品、绿色材料、绿色技术的广泛的采用。好，回望过去，我国循环经济发展通过不断创新取得了显著的成效。展望未来，坚持循环发展之路，才能大有作为，才能再上新台阶。在后疫情时代，我相信通过我们的合作共赢，必然实现循环经济在中国、在世界的发展。谢谢大家。
非常谢谢管秘书长的精彩报告和总结，让我们通过持续发展循环经济的展望，带给我们一个更好的未来。再次感谢。Our next distinguished speaker is Mr. C.S. Ho, who will talk on another important and interesting topic on sustainability and certification scheme. Mr. Ho is the chairman of the Hong Kong Quality Assurance Agency, and he will share with us their innovative services, in particular the Green Finance Certification Scheme to promote sustainability and environmental protection. Now let's welcome Chairman Ho.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to be here with you today. In recent years, government and business communities have been paying more attention to the sustainability performance of the enterprises, as well as the healthy development of the responsible investment market. Professional and impartial conformity assessment surveys play an important role that helps companies and the financial instrument issuer to improve the transparency, credibility, and performance of the sustainability performance, and also enhance the confidence of the investor and also the stakeholders. As one of the leading conformity assessment organizations in the region, the Hong Kong Quality Assurance Agency, which I'm going to refer to as Hong Kong QAA, has developed diverse and innovative services to promote social responsibility, environmental protection, sustainability, and investment responsibility. I'm thankful having the very special opportunity here to share what we have been doing in green and sustainable finance, and also join hands with different sectors to shape the better future for everybody. So now, may I now turn to some of the sharing I'm going to share with you. The first part, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Hong Kong QA initiative in promoting the green and social responsibility standard. We have a long history. In actual fact, we started to actually exist in the year 1989, which is over 30 years already. So we are sort of a spin-off of the Hong Kong government, and for the purpose to helping the local community to improve their management standards. So we have a long history over 30 years. But today, in view of the time, I'm going to just cover some of the major milestones in the recent years. The first one is shown in the picture here is the year 2008. So we collaborate Hong Kong HSBC, the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Corporation, to actually form a technical committee on the ISO 26000 on the subject of the guidance of social responsibility. And eventually, we follow that standard, we develop what we call the CSR index, which is the Corporate Social Responsibility Index. And we, in year 2011, we obtained UNFCCC accreditation as what we call the DOE, which means Designated Operational Entity, to deliver what we call the validation and verification service for the CDM, which we call the Clean Development Mechanism projects. We have been very fortunate, so I think there's no room for complacency, but I have to say, we are just the only organization in Hong Kong being accredited to do this. And then in year 2014, we helped the Hang Seng Index to develop what we call a Sustainability Index Series. And then the year 2017, which we have followed the ISO 14030, the environmental performance evaluation to develop what we call the green debt instrument. What I need to also mention is actually starting from the end of year 2016, we actually worked with the Hong Kong government and also the local community to start to think about the green finance. And then in the year 2018, we actually produced the first what we call the green finance scheme, which enable the investor and also the fundraiser to use our standard and then to test on their, I would say, whether they comply with all the green requirements or not. So this is what I mentioned briefly already just now. The GFCS on the screen stands for the Green Finance Certification Scheme. As mentioned earlier, we start to look into this subject at the end of December the year 2016. Within about a year, with the help of the government, also the local community, we roll out the scheme. And then in the year 2018, we issued the first bond certificate for the Hong Kong, one of the Hong Kong investor, and also the fundraiser. And in the year 2018, we rolled it out, and then the year 2019, we have a very grand presentation ceremony as shown in the diagram and also picture here in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And then in the year 2020, we actually one step forward. We built upon the green finance scheme, and now we extend the scheme to cover not just green fund, but also the ESG fund. And in the year 2000, September, that will say about a month ago, we already concluded 77 cases of assessment, and which amount to $70 billion worth of different green bonds and loans issued in Hong Kong. One of the participants I would like to mention is the Hong Kong government, which actually established to have what we call the rolling sort of green loan up to about 100 billion, that worth amount of money. And also they already applied for the certification by us. Now up to now, our scheme actually covers all sectors, all walks of life, from finance, property management, public utility, and the like, and also to the manufacturer as well. Now let me tell you a little bit about the portfolio of our service. The screen shows you the portfolio. We divided in 3 parts. The first one on the left side of the screen is, I would say, the bigger family of service, which is a certification. At the middle is the assessment, and then on the right-hand side is the rating. So in other words, our work not just cover just certification, but rather we can conduct assessment, and also we can actually give rating. So on the left-hand side, the certificate cover a lot of things. We cover green bond at the leftmost, and also the green loan, and we also extend the scheme to cover the green fund and ESG fund and so on. And at the middle, you see the COVID-19. We are actually position ourselves as, I would say, a service vendor. We are not seeking actual business per se, but rather we try to find out opportunity to render service. So because of COVID-19, we know that the community has now a demand to find out what kind of measure could actually ensure we can build resilience against the COVID-19. So we know that some investment will go to that area. So we developed the scheme to cover the COVID-19 scheme. So on the right-hand side most is the rating. Because people, apart from knowing whether compliance or not, they would like to know how high they are, how low they are, so that they can actually measure what they do and they can actually make improvement. So we also produce a rating too. Now let me explain to you briefly on the design concept of our scheme. Our scheme is rather different from some of the schemes that you know around the world. And of course, I think different two are different sort of, I would say, strength and weakness and so on. But we try to actually learn from the others and then build our scheme upon the other scheme and also upon the latest development of the investment market demand. So our scheme actually defines what is green, because people are concerned when you get the money, how you use our money and using on what type of object. So we define our green finance based upon the well-established what we call taxonomy. So one of the taxonomy is issued by the Green Bond Principle, another one is the People's Bank of China. So look at the right-hand side, you see that we have a lot of, I would say, different category of initiative. So if your project falls within that category, then of course we will say you actually satisfy the green definitions. And this taxonomy encompasses not just the China sort of, I would say, taxonomy, but also, as I mentioned, we also cover the world sort of standard, like the Green Bond Principle ones. Okay, we actually what we measure and how we do it, and also what are the features. So this is the three keywords. The first one is compatibility. The second one is simplicity. The third one is transparency. So for the first one, we have to ensure the green project classification is compatible with both the national standard and also international standard. So that's what we mean by compatibility. The second one is simplicity. We don't want to make the scheme very, very complicated. So we try to make the scheme user-friendly to both the fundraiser and also to the one who invests. And transparency, I think this is one of the very key principles across all the scheme. Because the people know that once you actually give transparency about what you're doing, how you use your fund, and how you handle your process, then I think everybody will become more confident on what they are doing. Now, we also understand the green industry, the green finance, so on, they advance very quickly. And we know that immediately after we formulate some sort of taxonomy, then perhaps the month after the next and so on, and some of the new technology will turn something which is not included in the taxonomy, but is now today become, I would say, very green, and perhaps that is the case. So because of that, we do not restrict all those projects must be falling within the taxonomy in our scheme, but we give them what we call the red track. So if you go through the airport, you know that it's something like if you have nothing to declare regarding custom and duty, you can go through a green track. So this is I would say the strict path. But in case of something new, which is not yet acceptable by the green taxonomy, then you can go through what we call the red track. And we have the specialists to assess your methodology and also your project to decide whether that can be included or not. We also believe in what we call measurable index. And some of the index I would say very quantitative. You can use number. For example, if you have some sort of wind farm, you know that how much energy you're going to generate, so which is actually measurable. But we also believe some of the qualitative index, which is actually can be, I would say, make measurable. So we try to make whole thing become quantifiable in certain ways so that people can actually look at your scheme in comparison to others to find out where your scheme, maybe where your project stands. Now the key requirements, what do you mean by key requirements? Whenever the applicant come to us, knock our door, submitting the project for our assessment, so we ask them to satisfy this requirement. The first one is we ask them for the methodology statement. That is to say, you claim your project to be green, and first of all, whether it fall within the taxonomy, and then we want you to actually produce how you actually do it. What is the methodology that you adopt? Now, this is the beauty of this scheme. We do not actually prescribe what you must do, but rather we ask you how you do it, and then you tell us your methodology and some sort of scientific evidence at the back, and then we can assess. And the second item is also very important. They have to undertake, they are going to disclose everything regarding how they use the scheme, what the scheme are, and also what the project asks. And also, this is the final point is also very important. We understand no matter what you do, sometimes you generate what we call the positive impact. But on the other hand, there may be negative impact. So we demand you to do what we call the impact analysis. So the criteria to evaluate the green impact, you ask, how I can tell you what is the impact? Then I say, yes, it's quite easy. You just go to the Sdg, the Sustainable Development Goal, which is published in the year 2015 and 16 by the United Nations, and telling the whole world, now we align. So this is a 17 sort of goal, and we have to actually follow. So as long as you do the impact analysis based upon these 17 criteria, then actually you can get marks as regarding your scheme. Now I go to the other sustainable financial service related to the green. I mentioned already just now very briefly regarding COVID-19. We try to help the industry again to raise money to combat the COVID-19. So we developed a scheme, I think perhaps, which is, if not the first one, must be among the first one in the world, which actually helped the industry to do this, just specifically to strike against the COVID-19. And I don't, because in the interest of time, I don't go through the details. And of course, later on, all the screen can be shared with you through the circulations. And we also conduct what we call the loan assessment scheme. If you try to actually lend money, so you try to actually tell the investor again, how you use the loan, and then whether the loan can be linked to one of the 17 sustainable goals, at least one. And some of them actually linked to about multiple, like 4 or 5 and so on. And we also do a lot of rating and research. In actual fact, apart from helping the Hang Seng Corporation to develop the Hang Seng Index, we also help other organizations to develop some sort of specific research and also specific index. So we call ourselves a solution provider, assessment provider. So this is just one of which. Okay, I actually sort of quickly going through what Hong Kong KOA has been doing. I hope that can, I would say, help you to understand more about what we are doing.
Thanks a lot for Chairman Ho's really educational session on the Green Project, in particular the Green Finance Certification Scheme, which is crucial for promoting the economic development and regional cooperations for Hong Kong in the Greater Bay Area and along the Belt and Road. In the next 30 minutes, we will have a panel discussion on technology and cooperation innovation and sustainable development. For this particular session, we have the great honor to welcome our 3 key industry and active leaders to come and participate in this discussion. In details, they are Mr. Hendrik Rosenthal, Director of Group Sustainability CLP Group, and Mr. Anson Lim, CFO of Freetech Road Recycling Technology Holdings Company Limited, and Mr. Albert Lam, CEO of Lofitel Robotics Limited. They will cover today a variety of new and innovative technology in their respective areas, I think including the carbonization, the road cycling, the green robots, addressing the climate and energy issues. For this session, we would like to do this session in 3 parts. And the first part, I would like to invite our distinguished speakers to share the new technology innovation for achieving the SDGs. And after that, I would also ask all the speakers to further discuss among each other on the shared topics. And if time permitted, we would like to also have our speakers to summarize how the SDGs would also benefit and help their enterprise for their own sustainable development. So let's start the first discussion topics. And may I suggest that Mr. Rosenthal, you can speak for the CLP group, and followed by Anson on the road cycling, and then Albert on the Lofitel robotics. And so please, Mr. Rosenthal.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here today. Great pleasure to be part of the Eco Expo Asia and to have the opportunity to share some insights from CLP's perspective, from the energy sector's perspective, in terms of how we respond to the Sustainable Development Goals. As you all know, they were implemented back in 2015, and that was really a piece that we took to heart at the organization in terms of what is it that we should do with the SDGs as an organization, as a business, given they are primarily targeted at governments to respond in terms of what are the 17 priorities that we need to address for society, for communities, in order to reach a sustainable future. So it was a matter of translating that into how is that relevant to our business and what can we do best? What is it that we're best at as an organization in order to respond to these 17 challenges and the 17 goals? So what we had prioritized after a number of discussions in terms of how that lines up with our values, with our mission, with our vision. There are 4 clear areas of prioritization, and they do relate very much to technology. The easy ones to remember for me are 7 plus 13 is 20, so that's climate action, as well as the clean energy solutions, clean and affordable energy. So that is really, in a nutshell, for us, our decarbonization agenda at CLP, in terms of how do we reduce the carbon intensity of the electricity that we deliver to our customers? How do we allow our customers to become more energy efficient? How do we enable everyone to consume less and still have the same effect in terms of keeping the lights on, keeping your phones charged, and increasingly so keeping your cars charged, so we can all continue commuting and going about our business. So that was a clear response for us in terms of this is something we have to focus on. The other 2 areas that are quite important is related to our workforce and gender equality, where we have our goal 8 in terms of the actual workforce that we have in place, and the priorities we see here in terms of having gender balance amongst our engineering workforce, allowing more opportunities for women to enter our the STEM type professions. So this is really an area of focus for us, and has been for many years as well. And then the innovation side under SDG 9, in terms of what is it that we really need to do to transform the business and transform the actual the whole business model, if you like, of an electric utility, to deploy new technologies and new innovations that enable some of the things that I mentioned earlier in terms of energy efficiency, for instance. So it's a big remit, but we're trying to be focused. We can't do all 17. And there's many, we try to do what we're good at. And where's our expertise? This is where we put our efforts.
Thank you, Hendrik. Understand that it is really all the 17 SDGs, we just cannot do it in one time, but thank you so much for the sharing. The 3 focuses, the response to the climate change, the decarbonization effort, and also the workforce. Thank you so much. And how about Anson, from your point of view, on your sharing on your raw recycling technology?
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank you today because to allow FITEC to attend to the event. So from our point of view, regarding the promoting the SDG, actually FITEC is a company always focused on environmental protection and promoting the SDG, because FITEC is involved in selling, manufacturing and selling of raw maintenance, and also provision of raw maintenance services by using its own hot in place recycling technology, which is can save 100% of the waste material and also reduce carbon emission. So according to the industry research, by using our technology, we can reduce the waste and reduce the loss of pollution, such as noise pollution, and also we also can promoting to recycling 100% of the waste material. But in other hand, if using the traditional method, which is total not environmental friendly, because they have to dig out all the 100% old material and then purchase the 100% new material to do the raw maintenance. So for FITEC points of view, when we are selling, when we have completed a sales transaction, actually we are achieving the social development goals, because we are environment friendly technology, which is we do every day right now.
Thank you, Anson. It's really interesting that there's a lot of areas that we can improve the environmental issue from the raw recycling. A lot of things we can do. Really educational and excellent area for us to work on. And so Albert, for your industry, the robots, and can you share with us the SDGs you are working on?
Yes, well, automation and robotics are some new topics that has been really hot in the market right now, because I believe that one of the things is that the improvement over the all-connected world, including the 5G and the AI, robots are doing much more in nowadays, especially over in the ECO area, especially over how to protect environment and to make sure that natural disaster from happening. One good example is that, especially in mainland China, there has been using a lot of robotics in terms of daily patrol over mountains and rural areas to prevent fire or disaster from happening. No matter it is caused by naturally or by human errors. So particularly all these kind of automation actually are doing a good job in terms of preventing disaster from happening. So something that is not what we want to see, just like what is recently happening in California or in Australia last year. The mainland China has been using technology a lot because it's actually emit a lot of pollutions in terms of this kind of a huge area of fire. So not only for the natural environment protections, robots also do a lot of help, especially over fighting around, like in today's healthcare incident, the COVID. So all these are things that would make a lot of difference in the upcoming how we live and how to make sure that we have less emission over the pollutants.
Okay, thank you, Albert. Really the wide range of how the robots can help for all these issues. Okay, we have the power industry, we have the road recycling, and we have the robots, the AI. Although we are in the different industries, but looks like we do have something in common. So maybe the next few minutes, I just turn it with all these three experts to comment. Any things that among yourself on just the topics you just shared. Maybe this time, maybe Albert, you go first.
Sure, thank you. So, well, for the time being in Hong Kong, I believe that we are under a lot of stress in terms of fighting against the virus. For my own company, we have been doing a lot in terms of using robotics in the healthcare sector, I would say, especially in hospital and elderly care. And using robots could decrease a lot of risk in terms of getting in touch with unknown personnel or risks that could get infected. So in particularly in terms of using robots that we can also find in terms of the coming up like smart hospital, how they use robots to decrease not only the risk of getting infected, but also the risk of using a lot of wastage in terms, especially over those daily operations. So through use of robots, you can have a lot of automation to reduce the number of human errors or extra efforts in terms of counting or delivering all these clothing that have been used or supplies in the hospital. While in the old days you have to do, especially like cleaning, using human to clean the floor, you will need a lot of use of water or disinfectants. While using robots, they use recycling water. So a good example is that to clean a car park, which is talking about 100,000 square feet, you need a use of a lot of water. But in using robots, they use filter. So the water are generated, are used in terms of a recycling kind of a cycle. So you don't have to change upon like dirty water and clean water. Use one tank of water, they can fulfill the whole area. So this is one of the good example. Another good example is like cleaning the facade of the building, especially in Hong Kong, a lot of high sky riser, really tall building with glasses. using the robots will reduce at least 70% of the water that you will need to use to clean the window. So you know we are all with these big windows with a very good view. In the old days, you need someone using like human hands to clean all the windows. But now with robots, the use of water is much reduced. So there are so many applications in terms of how to make better use of our natural resources and making I would say our future better. Thank you.
So Anson and Hendrik, do you have anything to add to share from your perspective?
Actually, our machine, actually we can interface with Albert. Actually, we are thinking about to embed the automated smart function on our machine. Because actually, road maintenance business actually is a high risk business because our employee have to drive the machine on the highway, because on the highway when the car they run very fast. So we think about to embed the automated smart function on the machine so we can reduce the risk of employee in the highway. This is one of the example we think we can this is my sharing for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from a safety perspective in particular, I think there's a number of examples where we've deployed, I'm not sure if it qualifies as robotic, but it is drone technology in particular that has been very useful for us, even here in Hong Kong when we do inspections of some of our systems and assets that are at height. So this could be our facilities at the power plant where we have to go up high, making sure that there's no cracks or anything that needs some fixing or maintenance, or even in the transmission and distribution network where we do have robotic, drone technology, drones going up and video, providing us with video footage before we send someone up in person. Yes. Because that always, if you go 30, 40 meters up in the air, there's a lot of risk. Mm-hmm. Yes. We don't want to have people get hurt, and we want to have everyone come home safely every day. So this really is a mitigation measure that has worked out really well for us. And another area we're exploring is also underwater drone technology. Mm-hmm. So inspections we do where we would normally send in divers just for inspection. There's nothing yet to fix. For fixing things, if it's underwater, okay, maybe you need to send in a person still, but if it's just for inspection, providing video footage and evidence, then again, the drone technology has been really, really useful for us. The other area, I think that maybe relates more to robotics, is related to our solar plants, where we need to keep them clean, actually. We need to use water, especially in areas where there's a lot of dust. Because the coating of dust on the solar panels will reduce the efficiency of the solar plant. So they do need regular maintenance and cleaning, but instead of, again, sending people out and maybe using too much water when they clean, we have robotics go out and do a very, very mechanical, it is a very predictable job. The plant is set up and they can go row by row and only with the minimal use of water. So again, it reduces safety issues related to labor, but also in this case, reduced water consumption. So it's very, very useful.
So it sounds like the robotics becomes more and more popular. Yes. And hey, Hendrik, I noticed that one point you mentioned is the workforce. So we talk a lot of technology, and then you also talk about the workforce. Can you elaborate a little bit more about this workforce is changing people's thinking, the transformation?
It's a very important point for us within the organization. So as part of the electric utility industry, all companies in this sector are really undergoing a transformation where for many, many decades we have generated electricity with large plants, with large assets, mechanical equipment, thermal power plants, which requires a very specialized know-how, engineering insights, mechanical, electrical, mechanical engineering. And we have built that capacity over many, many decades, and we've become very good at it. But as part of this transition that I described earlier, where we are also increasing our renewable fleet, having much bigger focus on decentralized generation, and providing smart technology and energy efficiency solutions, and through that process really creating a whole new business model for an electric utility. We actually want our customers to use less of our product. It's a bit odd perhaps, where we then need some transformation of how do we then sell this. Do we sell electricity or do we sell energy as a service? Do we sell, how much does it cost to charge your cell phone, your mobile phone? Or do we sell the number of electrons it takes to charge your phone? So that whole transition requires new thinking, new business models, and very much different from your traditional sort of know-how that you need as part of an electric utility sector. So there's a lot of thinking going on in terms of how we can design type thinking. Think outside the box. How do we get there? How do we enable this transition? Because it's happening whether we like it or not. Our industry is changing, so we need our workforce to change. Meaning, of course, you hire new people, but you also want to make sure that the good people that you do have an opportunity to contribute to this transition. So there's a number of different training programs we have put in place for that as well.
So although we talk about the high technology, but the people is still important. So yes. Anson and Albert, you have any comments or insight around this area?
Yes, definitely the workforce is still very important in this industry. For example, for our company, we have some experience when the customer come to us, want us to help them to repair the road. So when we go to the site and inspect the road condition, actually it cannot be repaired, have to rebuild. So now we are move forward. With, other than the repair, we have move forward. We think prevention is better than cure. So we have this. We think about this road doctor consulting services. So we will help the local government to inspect the road every year, so to see the condition of the road. If there are some damages, then we can repair instantly instead of waiting until it cannot be repaired. You have to rebuild. So actually, people is very important in this industry.
Okay. You have anything to add, Deborah?
Well, I think that two experts have said their story. I think that the most important thing is that we are in a big era of transition. We talk about transformation, but the transformation is talking about the person themselves. Yes. Why we use the word of like a transformation? Because we have to evolve our old thinking instead of just change. Evolve means that I believe that robotics, what we always there like a debate around like, oh, robots going to take over man, things they're going to take everybody going to job. I don't think that's the future. I think that we are meant to do something much in the other area in terms of creativity, in terms of servicing. One of the things is that when I talk to some group of restaurant owner, when we talk about meal delivery robot, which is very common, it's nothing new. But think about that, if I'm running a restaurant, what would my customer really want? Definitely is the services, rather than just serving me the meal, right? The meal is the content, but how we bring upon the content is the experience. While we are very busy in talking about having a trolley, just bringing here and there, we don't have a minute, not 1 minute, not a second to talk to our customer, which is actually more important or more value to be generated, rather than just putting the plate from the kitchen to the table. But we spend too much effort in doing that. And while we are doing that, we are actually wasting the actual value that person can bring upon to. So think about that when we are in an airplane. Definitely the first class has the best service, right? They don't just serve you, they talk to you. And robots do the repetitive work, they do the inspection, they do the things that is daily operating, which is relatively, in terms of value, is lower value. And humans should be doing something higher value. So it is always a debate, but I believe that is why I'm saying that, especially what the other two, our guest speaker is sharing, is the transformation that matters.
So really, thank you for the insightful comment. And yes, new technology, but we still need new thinking, new concept, and the new mentality. The transformation is important. So maybe the last question that we would like the group to discuss is for individual speakers, can you please summarize a little bit how the SDGs will also benefit and help the enterprise for its own sustainable development? Anyone would start first? Hendrik?
I mean, the 17 goals really provide a moral compass to all of us.
Yeah.
And as mentioned earlier, I think it's really important when you look at the 17 to figure out which one of them can you make the most contribution towards solving. Is it no poverty? Is it no hunger? Is it about climate action? Is it about sustainable consumption? Or is it about life undersea, underwater? Where's your expertise? Where's your heart? Where is it that you can actually really understand what the problem is, and where are you able to deploy solutions? Mm-hmm. So I think the challenge is for everyone to take a close, hard look at this. The goals are for 2030, I believe. So we'd only have a decade left. Yeah. They've been in place for 5 years. How much progress have we made? Are we just continuing along the same path as we have previously? And these goals are just sort of a nice to have, and it looks pretty colors and good words. Or are we really making things different here? And I think that's really all of us, when we go to work every day, when we go look after our families every day, this is something we need to be mindful of, and really go to work with purpose. And having these as a guiding light of what purpose means is very, very useful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. As I mentioned just now, because our company technology is environment friendly, so when we are promoting our technology, actually we achieving the SDG goal, which is also bring benefit to our company, because we are selling this recycling technology to the society, which the society can enjoy the clean method to repair the road. But our company also can benefit from them, because we are selling the technology to them. So for our company, we think we have to, right now our technology is not popular, but we have to do some more promoting on our technology, so that everyone can use our technology, so we can bring better society to our world.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the 17 goals are always one of the very important golden rules in my own company, because robotics is just like any other technology. It's not only an application of applying it, but you have to make sure that it generates values, not only to automate the whole process, but just look at the 17 goals, you can see that we are helping our client to be more sustainable and make sure that we are also doing the business in a more sustainable way. So in terms of how to achieve in such a way, just like what Hendrik said, it's like compass. So we look at it and we can see this is a future that everyone is going forward. And while we make sure that our service is sustainable, we definitely have to make sure that we're on the right path. So that's why I'm saying that it's a golden compass.
Yeah. So the 17 SDGs is really the big framework here, but with that, we still can use that to address the specific sustainable development need for our own enterprise. So thank you so much for the comment from our experts. I hear Hendrik has reflected a little bit on all the effort. So any final comment would our three distinguished speakers would like to say before we close the meeting?
Know what you're good at and deliver on that.
Yeah.
And keep those 17 goals in mind.
I like this one or two sentences. You said any final comment from Anson or Albert?
I believe that, as said, the future is right in front of us. So how to make it brighter, how to make sure that we all generate enough effort to make it happen. It requires everyone to participate into it. That's why I'm thinking to we are trying to use ourselves as an example, and to make a good example that will make sure that our future is getting closer.
Okay.
Yeah, the 70 goals is quite wide. Wow. So I think do your best to achieve one of them or three of them. So do your best for our company.
Yep, really great, insightful comment experience from you guys have been doing for the last few years. Thanks again for the excellent sharing given by our three experts, and now we get a much better understanding of the great effort by everyone in contribution to the SDGs, especially number 7, the clean energy, and the number 13, the climate action. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.